Hello, Year 7. Today we're going to be looking at rounding decimals. Okay, so we are familiar with rounding numbers that are bigger than 1. Okay, we're used to rounding to the nearest tens or the nearest hundreds or nearest thousands. Now this time we're going to be rounding to place values that are smaller than tens or hundreds or thousands. We're going to be looking at rounding decimal places. Okay, now when we're rounding, regardless of whether we're rounding decimals or whole numbers, we are always interested in the place value that we're rounding to, as well as the next number on the right. Okay, and our rounding rules are as follows. So if that next number to the right, next number is 0 to 4, we round down. Okay, so in that case, we just cut off the value and we keep the place value that we're rounding to the same. If the next number is 5 to 9, we round up, which means we cut off that value, but the number that we're rounding to goes up 1 value. Okay, so let's do a few examples so you can see what I mean. So first we're going to round each decimal to the nearest whole number. Okay, which means we're interested in the number in front of the decimal as well as the number after the decimal point. Okay, so for A, we're going to go, okay, we've got 12. Okay, that we're rounding to the nearest whole number, which is the 2 column. But we're going to look also at the number to the right of the decimal place and say, is it 0 to 4 or is it 5 to 9? Okay, the number after the decimal point is a 0. So that means we just round off to 12. The 2 stays as a 2. We don't change it. And we don't need to write point anything. We can just write 12 because we're rounding to the nearest whole number. We don't need to write the numbers after that. Okay, for B, however, we've got to look at the nearest whole number. So we've got 21. So 1 is our units column, and we've got to look at the 1 point on the right of the decimal point, and we have a 9. And because that 9 is between 5 and 9, we're going to round up. So it becomes 22. So the 1 is increased to a 2 because the number next to it on the right is 5 or greater. And we don't need to write the decimal point or any numbers after that because we have rounded it off at the nearest whole number. Okay, and finally for C, nearest whole number, we've got 8, but then it's 0.5. And because that number on the right of the decimal point is 5 to 9, we're going to round up. So the nearest whole number becomes 9. We increase 8 by 1 because we're rounding up. Okay, so we rounded down for A, we rounded up for B, and we rounded up for C as well. Okay, at this example here, we're rounding each decimal to the nearest tenths. Okay, remember the tenths is the number just on the right of the decimal point, so smaller than 1. Okay, so in that case, we've got to look at that place value at the tenths column, and we're also going to look at the number on the right of the tenths, that's the hundredths column, and see whether it's bigger or greater than 5. Sorry, less than 5 or 5 or greater. So for this number here, we've got 8.8. So 8 is our tenths column, and the number on the right, the hundredths, is 0. So we're going to round down, and it just becomes 8.8, just like that. Okay, so in this case, we do need to include the decimal point because we're rounding to a place value that's after the decimal point. We're rounding to tenths. Okay, for B, we've got to look at the place value that we're rounding to, the tenths, which is the 0.9 or the 9 there. And then the number to the right of that is 7, which means we're going to have to round up. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If we round 9 up, we get to 10. And the way that we do that is we actually have to then round the number to the left up and make the 9 a 0. Okay, so if you're rounding up, but your number is a 9, you have to then instead round the next number to the left up and make the 9 a 0. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be, we've got 15.9. The 9 rounds up to 0, and then we have to carry that 1 onto the next number. So the 5 will become a 6, so it becomes 16.0 to the nearest tenths. Okay, we need to include the 0.0 here because we need to show that we've rounded to the nearest tenth. That's what the question is asking. Okay, so we've had to carry that 1 across to the 5, so we round up the units column in this case. All right, last example here. We've got 21.5, so the 0.5 is what the place value we're rounding to, and the number to the right of that is also a 5, which means we're going to round up. So we increase 5 and it becomes 21.6. All right, last few examples here. We're going to round each decimal to the nearest hundredth. So the hundredth is the second place value after the decimal point. Same principles apply there. So we've got 25.18. So 8's the number we're rounding. The number to the right is 2, so we're going to round down, and it just becomes 25.18. Okay, so 2 decimal places is what we call that, and we don't need to write any other decimal places after that. Okay, next one, we've got 47.9873. Okay, 8 is the number we're rounding. The number to the right of that is 7, so we're going to round up, which means we're going to increase the 8 to a 9. It becomes 47.99. 2 decimal places are shown. Okay, and then the last example here, we're rounding. We've got 56.555. So we're going to round the second 5 after the decimal point. So, but then the number to that is a 5, so we need to round up. So it becomes 56.56. We're going to increase that 5 up 1 because we're rounding up. Okay, good luck with the questions today. Let me know if you have any questions with rounding, and I'll see you in the next video.